Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare.
All right. Well, we are nearing the end of this text, and we're going to get some sage advice from His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama and Venerable Tubden Chödrön regarding the tools and approach to this Buddhist path. So they're wrapping up this text around approaching the Buddhist path. The next volume will be the foundations of Buddhist practice. So we're spent a great deal of time just approaching the path. Now we're going to get ready for a foundation. And now these will be the offerings that I think are really critically important, especially for Westerners as they engage with Buddhist paths. So that's where we're at in the text currently. And we'll pop that right up on the screen. Chapter 9, Tools for the Path. To practice the Dharma successfully, more than information and meditation, more than information and a meditation cushion are required. We need a proper motivation and good practical advice that will help to overcome hindrances. Yeah, you'll find the hindrances are the big issue. This chapter speaks of the mental tools we need to progress along the path, such as faith and wisdom. We'll also explore the roles of prayers and rituals, of purification and the collection of merit, and the memorization and debate in cultivating the three wisdoms, the wisdoms rising from learning, reflecting on the teachings, and meditating on them. General advice is where we begin. So this chapter will cover all these sage advice. That's the way I look at it, sage advice, wisdom. Learning the Dharma is different from learning subjects in school. Not only is our motivation different, here we seek the method to attain fortunate rebirth, liberation, and awakening, but also the methodology is different. Our spiritual mentors present topics that are comparatively easy to understand, as well as those that are more challenging in the same Dharma talk. Have you ever experienced that? Oh yeah, I get that. I get that. What is that? So sometimes their response to our question leads to more confusion. Our mentors instruct us to think about the topic and discuss it with others, but we want them to give us the right answer. Wouldn't that be nice? Unlike academic studies in the West, where we are expected to remember and understand everything our teacher says so we can pass the test, this is not necessarily the case in Dharma education. While we should try to remember and reflect on the salient points of a lecture, we're not expected to understand all the intricacies of a topic at once. Teachers explain a topic to plant seeds in our mind streams so that they will become familiar with the vocabulary, so that we will become familiar with the vocabulary. Having heard the topic once, the next time we hear it, we will be able to focus on the concepts being presented. By hearing and reflecting on a teaching repeatedly, our understanding and ability to integrate the meaning into our lives will gradually increase. So this is something that is really critical to understand, that this is going to be layers of an onion. we're going to have Venerable Tenzin Predarshi come out and give a teaching later this year. And I'm going to ask him to give a teaching. I did ask him to give a teaching on the 3 principal aspects of the path. Shortest Lamrim teaching there is. And I don't know, probably 18 years ago, I first heard it. And I guarantee you we'll all learn something from this teaching, and at different levels. Something as pithy as these 3 principal aspects: renunciation, bodhicitta, and wisdom, in as combined way. It really is the foundation of all the teachings, and holds within it the entirety of the path. And we can listen to it, we can hear it, we can study it, but over years, the meaning, the way it speaks to us, our understanding, our realization of it will really be cultivated in a very different way, time and again. So that's something that's very different here. Is we may read another book, academic or something, and I got that. I know these formulas, or I know this economic thing, or I know this history of something. But this is not that kind of teaching. This is something that ripens more and more over time. And they say that a well-qualified teacher, in this Gelugpa tradition that I was trained in, those who receive like a geshe degree that are really qualified, can give 10 different answers to the same question, all of which would be valid, depending on the circumstance of the person or what they need to hear. So that's where it's like, what might be a right answer at this stage of my practice, it could be a very different answer later in my practice, and in the context with which I'm asking the question. So, understanding that about this path it's why we return to something again and again. Some of you actually do morning practice with me, right? A few of you, some of you online, I know, at least you say you do. And so each and every morning, I record morning practice, and there's 2 verses that we start off. This opportune physical form is more precious than a wish-fulfilling gem. You only gain its like the once, so hard to get, so easily destroyed. It's like a lightning bolt in the sky. Contemplate this, and you will realize all worldly actions are but wind of chaff, and night and day you must work to extract some essence from this life. I, a yogi, practice in this way. You, wanting liberation, should do the same. I don't know, I've been doing that verse for 20 years, 2 verses. And those of you who do it with me in the morning, you'll realize we talk about something different every time. We read it, and then how is that speaking to you today? And so that's the nature of Dharma. It's that we return, we bring some contemplation to these verses. The meaning speaks to us in different ways at different times. And so those 2 verses are about our rare and precious human birth, the fact that it has the complete path to awakening has ripened for our lives right here, right now, in this moment. And it comes once. And we don't know how long we'll have it. And so, wow, what would it be like if we actually knew that? So each day, just watering that seed. And at some point, we may actually deeply know that. And then nothing will be more important. Contemplate this, and you'll realize all worldly actions are but wind of chaff. And night and day you must extract some essence of this life. So watering that seed each and every morning, bringing it to life, very transformative. So that's the point being made here, is that these teachings are not teachings where, yeah, I get it, I read it, okay, what's the next teaching? What's the next path? It is, oh, maybe I should go over that again. Okay, here's, the path, and here's the seeds that are planted. So I have a map, but, I'm right here right now, and this is my practice today and where I'm at on this journey. And over time, things ripen, insights ripen, wisdom ripens, compassion ripens, and sometimes it's sneaky because we'll forget how far we've come. We keep thinking, I want to be a Dalai Lama, and I'm just, experiencing me as myself, instead of look how far that self has come on this journey, this experience that you're having. So they're giving us advice right off the bat that we are going to have these seeds planted. These seeds ripen over time in their own time, and it's not a race, not a got this nailed. I can quote the Noble Eightfold Path. I can give you those. I can give you 18 specifics around a rare and precious life. I can memorize that. It's how's that tangibly relate to your experience, and how does that apply to how you live? That's going to be much more relevant. So any thoughts there before I pop open the text? All right. Carry on. Understanding the Dharma is not dependent on worldly intelligence. Some people who are brilliant in academic studies or worldly affairs have great difficulty understanding Dharma principles. On the other hand, some people who do not do well in school quickly catch the intent of the Buddha and practice diligently. For this reason, we should not be arrogant because we have worldly intelligence, and not put ourselves down if we lack it. And for those of us who are school teachers in the room, we talk about multiple intelligences, right? We all have these multiple intelligences, and what's creative, and not just mathematical and so forth. And so there's many ways that the Dharma can be connected to us. We need to be patient with ourselves and let go of unrealistic expectations of quick attainments. We should also avoid comparing ourselves to others and feeling proud that we are more advanced than our friends, or lamenting that we lag behind them. Yeah, these are the traps that it's so easy to get into. Some people map out, what's the deal? I got a 5-year plan, like in life. I got a 5-year Buddhist plan, I'm going to be in this. I've had those plans. And yeah, didn't work out so well. So that comparing, I like the one that says, lag behind, lamenting how we lag behind them. One of our friends did a 10-day Vipassana retreat, and he was sitting there and he saw people in the front row, and day in and day out, perfect posture right up there at front. And, the whole time he's tortured, and he did well. And he just saw, wow, what would it be like to be like them? Then, after they could talk, they were telling him, man, I was feeling miserable as torture. They were right where he was, but the idea was they had it all together, looking good. So, just getting out of that stuff. We're not comparing. Every now and then we might admire someone, someone who is inspiring, has great compassion, kindness. It's nice to be inspired, but not the comparison. As Jetsuma Tenzin Palmo reminds all of us, our Buddha nature is no less than the Dalai Lama's or any other Buddha. We have the same. They're just better at recognizing it. So we have all that. Each person has different predispositions from previous lives, so no two people will progress at the same speed or in the same way. Comparison of this sort only breeds jealousy, arrogance, and competition, qualities that waste time and are not conducive for transforming our mind. Similarly, due to karmic connections in previous lives, our friends may be drawn to a particular teacher who does not particularly inspire us, and vice versa. Rather than be influenced by peer pressure, we must choose our teachers depending on the quality of guidance we receive from them and the depth of connection we feel with them. We should avoid comparing the practices our teachers instruct us to do with those our friends are prescribed. Because no two sentient beings are identical, the Buddha taught a wide variety of practices so people could find those suitable for them. That does not make one practice better and another worse. It simply means that one practice is more suitable for one person and a different practice for another person. Oh, good. We're going to talk about food. All right. At a buffet dinner, one may like rice and another noodles, debating which is best, trying to convert our friends to our preference, or feeling out of place because we aren't attracted to the one our friends like. Wait, let me say that again. Or feeling out of place because we aren't attracted to the one our friends like are useless. That doesn't make sense to me. Or feeling out of place because we aren't attracted to the ones our friends like are useless.
I think it might be is useless. I mean, it might be better understood that way.
We aren't attracted to the ones our friends like is useless. Yeah, maybe that makes better sense. Thank you. We get the point. At the point. Well, here it is, the point. That's the next sentence. Should have just gone there. The point is for each person to eat food that nourishes his or her body. They should study with the teachers who inspire us and practice in the way that works best for us. So, these are, again, pithy instructions. So many people get caught up in their Dharma center or their teachers or, this path and, even in the Tibetan lineages and, this is the right way and that's a waste of time and so forth. And we might get in our own minds that, oh yeah, no, we got a much better path than so and so. Then we got spiritual arrogance going on. So really critical to understand that different people have different religious faiths, different traditions. They're getting their needs met in ways that can be very meaningful for them, and may be able to teach us a lot. So. Not feeling that peer pressure to be with a specific group or in a specific way. Those are some of the traps that can happen. And that's where a lot of people, may find, years in a particular group. And 20 years later, they're just disenchanted from the whole thing. I had met someone, I've done this quite often, but one in particular, 20 years and great service, great practitioner, but totally disillusioned and was just finding his way back to a path, and healing again. And, that's where sometimes sticking with some things and a teacher that inwardly, just isn't connecting for you. Not that they're a bad teacher, it's just not connecting for this person in the way that was meaningful. And so, the opportunity here is to really have those heart connections, have some stability, have some practices that work. But the other side of that is that we need to be diligent. A lot of what our teachers tell us to do, we don't want to do. Right. And our teachers are to show us our minds, not to make us feel good all the time. So having a balance between a good, healthy, solid direction that we know is meaningful, that maybe I don't like or don't want to do, well, that might be the best thing to do. The feeling is that it's healthy, it's right. There's a faith that we have in the guidance, in the person, that they're ethical and that they do care and they do have your interest at heart. So having those are, and the reason is, as at the start it was talked about hindrances. We're going to have hindrances, and it's going to take something to get through those, to show up when we don't want to show up, to do some practice when we don't want to do practice, to reach a space in our life where we're pretty comfortable, and then I stop working. We're going to have all these things. It might be too hard, it might be too easy. So having that inspiration, that faith, that connection, that's going to lead to some stability. And so I think there's one more paragraph here. We'll pop that in. Strong, continuous, and stable spiritual experiences are more reliable than powerful, fleeting ones. And so that's kind of the thing. Sometimes we chase, teachers or teachings that make us feel good. We have those great experiences. We have this practice. Ooh, makes me feel good. It's all good. But underneath that, no irreversible transformation. I felt good for a while, but I still have my same worries, fears, anxieties, struggles, angers, and so forth. And so really finding the right path, the right teacher, then we can really engage over time, steady, continuous progress. That sometimes doesn't feel very good. Some beginners have a strong emotional feeling that they must renounce everything and meditate in solitude for the rest of their lives. Come on, haven't we all thought, wouldn't it be nice to be a monk or a nun? Oh, yeah. And instead of immediately searching for an isolated retreat hut, they should keep practicing and see if after a year, the feeling still has the same intensity. If it does, they should consult their teacher for guidance. So I'll tell myself, okay, when I found my teacher and the teaching, I've been studying, I've been practicing, I've been meditating, and I came in, I'm like, oh, I know this is the stuff. All right, so where's the advanced practice? Where's, I want to take these and these, I want to do that. And the attendant, it was just so easy with me. He said, that's nice. We're really glad that can do all that, and maybe just come around for a while, and just slowly, just show up and get to know us a little, and all that, But I was all like, oh yeah, no, yeah, I got all that found it. I'm ready for this stuff. And they were just they were so cool about it. Just that's wonderful. Have a seat. It's like, have a seat. I'm almost embarrassed when I was thinking about it. Yeah. Oh yeah, no, I got all that. I'm ready for it. And but it was the best advice. Just slowly come in, sit down, get to know these things. So, and then, it's the same intensity. So in my case, what did happen is in a very short period of time, it did have that intensity. And by short time, probably 2001, a couple of years, was getting, some of those opportunities, and then ultimately a monk. So that's, in the big scheme of things, 2-3 years, it's pretty quick from showing up at a Dharma center to getting a haircut. Yeah. For most people, meditating in isolated retreat for years is not an option or even a preference. The vast majority of us need to balance Dharma study and sitting meditation with our daily life activities. Formal daily sitting practice enables us to deepen and integrate our understanding of the Dharma in a concentrated way. But the actual determining factor of the effectiveness of our practice manifests in our behavior. That's where we'll find out how we're doing. Who's that guy? Was it Ram Dass who said, if you want to check your spiritual practice, go visit your relatives. Go spend a week with your relatives. All the old stuff. So, but this is really the practice, right? How are we with our neighbors? How are we with our coworkers? How are we with these people? That's going to be how we gauge our progress. There's a story of someone who meditated in an isolated cave for years and thought his practice was progressing well. But when he went down to the town to get some supplies, someone criticized him. His anger immediately flared and he began shouting at the other person. It's a pretty famous story. It's a little more elaborate than that, but great yogi, great meditator, all that. And then just the insecurity around a criticism just flew out. Similar incidents in our lives show us which disturbing emotions we need to put more energy into taming in our sitting practice. So those life experiences can teach us a lot about ourselves, and then we can bring that into our purification practices, our transformative unskillful events practice that we have. We can learn a lot there. People often ask how to balance formal Dharma practice with actively engaging in projects that benefit others. Being of service. If you are a householder, 50-50 is a good balance. But remember that how this balance manifests in your life will change according to your circumstances, so be flexible. Stabilize your compassion through your formal practice and express it through your active service to others. Work at transforming your motivation, thus making your daily activities part of the Dharma path. And so in that way, you can actually transform most of your day into Dharma practice if you have that stable morning practice and of service and bringing that loving kindness and compassion into your activities. That's what we focus on in the Lojo teachings that we do on Tuesday mornings. If you feel stressed by your service work for others or become angry at or disappointed in the people whom you're trying to help, step back, rest, and take more time for personal practice. During your meditation practice, focus on developing a compassionate motivation, fortitude, and joyous effort. Learn to accept the limits of the change you can enact in the world under influences of afflictions and polluted karma. That's a big one. Learn to accept the limits of the change that you can enact. Recognizing everybody's in this prison of affliction. Sometimes we go too far in the other direction, becoming complacent in our Dharma studies or in a stagnant meditation practice. In these cases, contemplate impermanence and death, as well as the suffering of sentient beings to reinvigorate your compassion. So again, we can go both ways there, and finding a balance with that practice, I think, is a journey. I know I often struggle with that myself. So I'm going to pause there and just see if anyone has any thoughts or questions regarding this advice and how we approach our practice.
I'm wondering if you have any, tips sound so like something to do with like getting laundry stains out, but signs that you're in a good balance of the outer world activities and maybe even self-care and service. Often I feel like I'm always sort of like adjusting to catch up in one area or the other.
I think one of the things that has helped me is that I don't try to evaluate all of those things. It's not like I'm catching up in one area. It's much more in my current way of being. What's my biggest affliction? It's like there's generally something that's more out of balance than anything else. And in the 7-point mind training, if you want to check on how well you're doing in your practice, there's how you measure your progress. The ultimate one is how happy you are working. So where I notice is sometimes I'm much more resilient, I'm much easier to flow. Other times I'm more restricted, don't want to talk to people. Other times much more open, easy to go with things. And so I'll notice those things, or as you pointed out, sometimes I think how we can notice afflictions or some irritations that arise. And rather than trying to think about it in the bigger terms of all those balances is, what's the biggest thing right now? We had a practice not long ago in the advice in this text of identifying that major thing, the biggest thing right now, and just focusing on that. And what happens when I do that is the other things fall into place easier. And so, and sometimes that could be as simple as simplifying, right? Might be taking on too much, might be filling the time too much, might not be, taking care of oneself. Other times, could be this resentment or these things that giving rise, my judgments of a particular person or thing coming on. But it's more about, rather than trying to monitor a lot of things, it's, what's the biggest thing that I can be learning from or working with right now? And generally I found, I was reflecting today in my own life, like, why am I here in this lifetime, in this thing? What's the work? And, what is it I haven't resolved? And I have a pretty clear pattern, of the last over 30 years of looking at that, going, yeah, John, you still got this sort of, deeply rooted thing that I think you need to resolve. And so for me, what works is identifying the biggest struggle or the biggest impediment. Sometimes it doesn't feel like a struggle. Sometimes it's actually a desire to be distracted, which doesn't feel like a big deal, except it actually is, right? What's my biggest attachment is preventing me from, doing what I know would be healthy. So for me, that's the way I can start to notice, when I'm out of balance and, not as free, not as open. And then identifying, what's my biggest, what's the one sort of major thing I can, attend to. And that can look a lot of different ways. There's 6 perfections that we recited at the start, right, when we took refuge. And generosity, ethics, patience, joy, effort, concentration, wisdom. And sometimes the answer for me is there, is the antidote can be patience. I want to work on patience for the next 2 weeks. I don't think anybody can go wrong with that, by the way. Just saying. Sometimes the antidote is, the concentration and attention, we can get pretty scattered. Sometimes it's, my current thing I'm working on is devotion. I really want to grow my devotion. And then as I focus on that major thing that I've identified that I know can either help me or that which I want to work to address, those other aspects just fall into place. That would be my thought there from my experience.
John, that kind of segues into something I've been wondering about. When we do the purification practice during the morning 7 limb prayer,
Uh-huh.
and we're forming an intelligent regret for something we've done. And this might be kind of a silly question, but is it more productive to come up with a regret that's very specific, or is it okay to have something broad? Because one I have been noticing, you say you've been noticing what it is you need to work on, and for me, I've been noticing, well, just being sort of attached to the 8 worldly concerns. But that's quite broad.
Yes.
So I don't know, like when you're trying to work on correcting maybe some unskillful behavior, if it's better to be a little more specific, or is it okay to be that broad?
The more the specific, the better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Glad I asked then.
Yeah. Vagueness, is generally not very helpful.
So maybe take an aspect of a worldly concern that seems to be the most unskillful.
And I would say even go to a very specific instance of that.
Okay.
Right? A very direct interaction of that, and
Okay.
see where that worldly concern came into play. And,
Okay.
Yeah, and then identify, okay, my attachment to that concern in that moment is that thing with that person.
Okay.
Wow.
So an actual event that the worldly concern sort of manifested through that event, and just rehash that event.
Yeah, literally
Okay.
dial it in and watch, because if you can get the feeling state of being there in that moment, the sensation of that, and then, as you purify and you can think about, how I could be different, and you can tie it to that feeling state, you're going to give yourself just a whole new freedom.
Okay.
And you won't be a prisoner of the feeling state, when it gets triggered.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
Yeah, you can knock it out tomorrow. Won't ever happen again.
No problem.
Yeah. Yeah. I would have like a specific person or something, and I would do it for a month, with the same.
Yeah.
Just really dial it in, and then it would just change my whole experience with that person. So
I'll bet.
yeah, real specific helps.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah.
And here I thought that was a stupid question, but look.
No. Yeah. Deep philosophical conversations rarely change lives. Yeah, we can hang out there pretty easy.
So I wanted to ask, what struck me this time was what you said about if someone is, at a different place on the path, or more commonly in my life, someone's not on the path at all, and we get frustrated or angry with something they've done. I'm trying to cultivate, as you've taught before, just feel compassion that they don't know any better and they don't have the skills or the information. And so I was just thinking about this today, how to do that, how to do that without feeling superior and without, feeling arrogant. And as I was thinking to ask the question, I thought, I think I know the answer. I mean, it's about having compassion. for them because they don't know the skill or have the information, or they're not that developed, rather than feeling like frustrated because I know more than they do. What would you, how would you respond to that whole
I would say,
query?
instead of both of those, how about recognize that they are showing you your mind? And in that way, they become our teacher. And, you know, for me, I will reflect that this person that, you know, I'm so triggered by can easily be a Buddha showing me my mind. And that every, you know, actually everyone I interact with, everyone I encounter, they're all displays that I'm seeing through my own direct experience and my conditioning. And so in that respect, these people, I'm not better than, they're actually great, great bodhisattvas showing me my own afflictions and giving me an opportunity to grow, in which case I am not looking down at them at all. I'm recognizing, you know, that value that they're offering.
So gratitude and cultivating equanimity might be more
It's not
skillful.
even gratitude, it's recognizing them as your teacher, as actually maybe even
Okay.
seeing them as a Buddha teaching you.
Okay.
I mean, gratitude will arise out of that. But if I recognize that these people that I see, although first off, they'll have Buddha nature, but sometimes the ones that are the burr under the seat, you know, like that might have been a lifetime of someone coming together just to be there for you in a way that will teach you about yourself. And in that way, wow, that really transcends. Now, getting there is not so easy, right? Yeah. So it's fun when somebody tells you, man, you're my precious teacher. You're thinking, man, I must irritate the heck out of that person. Yeah, I always take that compliment with a grain of salt. But yeah, so, you know, in certain instances, it's compassion. In other instances, so with different people in my life, sometimes I really take some time because sometimes I know of their struggle, in which case I actually wind up with great admiration that they have come through so much and can do so well in spite of their struggles. Sometimes it's, for me personally, a deep recognition about there's something about them that I also have struggled with. And it's showing me a little bit about my own. Maybe it's something I've worked to overcome, or something that I have a bit of in myself, you know, a selfishness I might have, or this or that. And, you know, there's a particular individual in my life that, you know, like sort of all these things that I see are such a, you know, struggle, or I see as wayward. When I look more deeply, I see those aspects of quality in my own mind, you know, and go, yeah, just like me. Just like me. And so, you know, understanding that how we're experiencing anyone has a lot to do with us. You know, it doesn't make us better than, you know, they can be our precious teachers, in which case they're more important than us. And not that you're any less than, but they're in that moment more important in that they're teaching us something. So if you get into the 8 verses of thought transformation, we see, you know, everyone in that way. But it might start as, you know, like you say, with compassion, that's good. But when we see ourselves as superior, you know, it's not compassion anymore. It's pity. That's a place of superiority, which is tricky. But what I also hear is that you've been working with this and having some success. So continuing what you're doing is you're probably already on the right track. Because you're already talking about the awareness of not wanting to look down upon. So, I mean, that's advanced practice you're already engaged in.
So I'm almost ready for the monastery.
Yeah, you're ready for the haircut. Close,
Okay.
close.
All right. Thanks, John.
Yeah, right. Hey, Rebecca.
Along the same lines, what Rita was saying, I am struggling with trying to turn a little bit and be more light
Mhm.
and humorous. I find that I get really worked up, I get really serious, especially dealing with my teenagers
Yeah,
and close family members, and like I get weepy, and I'd like to be lighter, but I don't know how to do that, you know?
yeah. Any advice, Laura?
The thing that's helped me, the first thing that comes to mind that's helped me is to remember, and John will often say this is one moment in one day, in 1 year, in one lifetime, because when I'm taking it seriously and it's impacting me that much, I'm really clinging to how this turns out in this moment is so important. And when I step back and remember, it's just one moment, and there's lots of conditions, it helps me to lighten up.
I'm not a very light person. Struggle. The closest people are to us, the heavier those things are, right? And as Laura's point, we can, because we want the best for them, right? We want the best for them. We want our families to be well. We want our people in our lives to be well. But as Laura's pointing out, these moments that get so intense, and then it's Tuesday, right? And then we're laughing some other thing. And so really bringing an awareness that everyone's on their journey. My children are on their journey. I'm a grandparent now, done the kid thing and all that. And their paths unfolding. And just for me as a parent, I'll go to the parent mode. That's why it's going Laura, the mom mode. What has gotten my definition of a successful parent is that my kids know that they're loved. Everything else is just busyness. They're going to do ridiculous stuff. They're going to do stupid stuff. They're going to have attitudes. They're going to have all that stuff. But at the end of the day, if they know that they're loved and that they're cared for, that seed can help transcend everything else. Just a slight example of my own life is, as many people know, my mom raised 9 of us, worked a couple jobs, and 5 of us wound up with substance abuse and addiction, and many went to prison. And if you were to look at our lives, you would not have thought, this is going to be okay, right? Bullets flying in the house, violence, chaos. All 5 brothers with substance use issues changed their lives, got sobriety, have decades of recovery. When my mom passed away, all of us were there for her. All of us good human beings, all of us transformed, and all of us able to let her know that it's okay to go, Mom, and we're okay. Because that's what moms, we're okay. And she could die knowing that all of her children, all 9, were okay. And so for me, that speaks as being a parent, seeing the role model of my mom who lived through horrendous times. And somebody I was just talking to the other day, because they were talking about traumas, family systems, all that stuff in psychology. And I mentioned, 5 of us, got clean, changed our lives. He said, something was there. I said, yeah, it's my mom. And so for that kind of parent, the ups and the downs, the things that people go through, and struggles, those will all come and go. But the gift of being a parent and the joy, to allow that to happen, to let them make some of their mistakes, to have good boundaries. My daughter will let you know I had good boundaries. She wrote many an essay while being grounded. But to know that we're not in control, that karma is unfolding and ripening in ways and that's what was being pointed in this text, to not get too caught up in our limited ability to affect others and their own conditioning with that. And then if I have family members or struggles that are kind of inherent, I'll spend a great deal of time looking at what I value about them, what their strengths are, instead of narrowing down on, how they're harmful in this or that way, and having good boundaries. Yeah. And if all else fails, when's the last time you skipped? Yeah. No, skipped.
Oh, like skipped.
Yeah.
Actually, recently,
You're appreciating you skip. That's my go-to. When I feel too heavy, I skip. It's hard to not be okay when you're skipping, isn't it? But the real core of it that we do the work with, which Carla was, getting into, is identifying our attachment around how they behave, identifying that attachment, and thinking that I know how it should be. And when in fact, we have no idea how it should be. Sometimes people with the best circumstances, things turn out not so well. And sometimes the more difficult things turn out great. But karma is unfolding day in and day out, ripening. And how it's unfolding, the lessons that I learned are all for a reason and on a trajectory. And all we need to do is our part. In this situation, what's the healthiest way to be? And that's where the guidance comes. It's that question, not about right, not about wrong. In this moment, what would be the healthy way to engage? And know that we've had the joyful moments, we've had the tough ones where it gets really small. But that view of spaciousness, that this is just one moment of one day, 1 year of one life. It gives a lot of space to it. Hopefully it helps. Yeah. All right. Anybody else? The analogy that I often have about attachment is if you have like a butterfly in your head, you hold it too tightly, you'll kill it. You hold it lightly. And that's kind of the relationship I like to have with my loved ones. Try to open that up. Yeah. Well.
Hey, John, I had one here. Just
Okay.
a comment and see what you have to say. That last part in the reading about 50% of the time practicing, sitting, meditating, doing your formal practice, and 50% of the time helping others. And Kurt and I had read this by the Dalai Lama in another commentary, and it raised our eyebrows. Like, wow! So either either you're helping people or you're formal practicing. It doesn't say like, and 25% of the time, you're watching Saturday Night Live or something. So I mean, one thing I would say for myself, which you were talking about earlier is, you know, as I change and I bring a different person to the Dharma and hear certain things, even repeated, I hear them in different ways and I'm growing and changing. And I don't know, for me, it really is coming more into like, I want to be formally practicing. And I can see that the most important thing to me now, my most important value is to be helping and, not just pleasure seeking for Keith. And it doesn't mean I don't have some pleasure in there. I do, for sure. But I guess that balance that he's talking about has evolved for me even from the first time I read that in one of his commentaries to now. It's like, oh, that doesn't sound so far-fetched to me now. Um, I just wanted to hear what you might have to say about
Want to grow up and be like you.
it.
Good stuff. Um, the way I read it was a little different. Doesn't, I don't know if I'm right on this. But the way I read it was people get so concerned with their practice. And then they also want to be helpful. So you'll often hear people say, how good of a Buddhist are you if all you're doing is meditating and praying? How are you helping people? Right? When in fact, that actually might be very helpful. So the way I read it wasn't that 100% of your time, 50 should be in formal practice and 50 should be helping others. What I read was that as you're engaging in your Buddhist practice, part of your Buddhist practice, you want it to be of service to others. So I kind of read it like that. So balancing, that this idea that I want to be of service, I want to do meaningful things, that's also a part of my practice and balancing that. I didn't read it where it said balancing my Buddhist practice with my life. It said balancing my Buddhist practice with my desire to be of benefit to others. So I kind of read it like that. But what you're pointing out, and I think is where we are in the 7-point mind training, is that the totality of our life can be both practice and helping others becomes the practice, right? And the ultimate practice is, and what all these things do is teach us how to love, right? And so at some point, there need be no difference between what I might identify as a formal practice and attending to someone, or taking a walk, or watching Saturday Night Live with some friends so we can chuckle a bit, and might be just what the doctor ordered in that moment. It's the mind that we're bringing to it. And that's what I hear you sharing, is that as that mind has ripened more and more, it's not as much the activity, but the mind you're bringing to it, the attentive, the way you attend to it. And then that desire and seeing the benefits of it grows. I'm hearing you right. And at some point, then, service is not effort. And, there's just nothing more important to do. And it's rewarding. And our reward system kicks into a different way. It's not draining. And then that balance can be that some of these silly things that we seem to do are things that in our culture and society might be really beneficial to partake in, but we're doing it to be a good human with other humans, or giving ourselves a break. And also recognizing, as he touched on in the beginning, is to be where we're at. And sometimes where we're at is to listen to a comedy show. And that's okay. Being hard and tight around that, like that beginner who just wants to be a yogi, that'll be brittle. It's Tenzin Priyadarshi talks about being bitter and brittle. We don't want to be bitter and brittle. We want to be, yeah. So that's my thought on your share, and I really appreciate, the way that you're able to express how that aspect of your life becomes, very doable. All right. Well, silence seems to mention that we coming to a close for our time together tonight. We're at the very end of this section of chapter 9. I'll just pop that up. There's these nice little reflections here about a balanced life entails sharing our time among many activities, Dharma practice, socially engaged projects that benefit others, work, caring for friends and family, exercise, and other activities. So it's all of those things. I did my exercise today. I got a little YouTube lady working me. I got my full body exercising today. She doesn't really understand what beginner exercises are. She doesn't understand the word, I don't think. Then what is a practical way to prioritize these activities in your life? And that becomes the critical thing. How do we prioritize all these exercise, food, caring for others, our meditation, and so forth. So that's the thing I think most people are always working with. And then, given your talents and limitations, think of a realistic way to apportion your time and energy that will bring you satisfaction, not stress. So if you get too caught up in this practice, you're not getting satisfaction, you're getting stress. Now you're bitter, you're brittle, and you're forgetting, to, skip or have some fun or watch a TV show or whatever that is that gives a break. And, make sure that we meet ourselves where we're at, that we're not too lax and we're not too tight, and that we are in a human experience, So these three are the things that I would encourage people to reflect on this week. The reflection at the end of this section. What is this balanced life? How do you prioritize your activities? And then, really assess where we're at. Do I need time for some? If we don't have joy in this, we're losing the deal. Jatsuma Tenzin Palmo, I talked about the 6 perfections. She thinks the 7th one is humor. Right? You got to have some humor. You got to have some fun in there. So make sure joy is a part of how you prioritize your activities. Make sure joy is in there. All right. Okay. Let's go ahead and dedicate the merit that we've already cultivated this evening together. I will pop up the dedication. Oops, that's not the dedication, that's the text. Wisdom and faith is next week. Ooh, that gets you on the edge of your seat, huh? Okay, so taking just a moment as we prepare to dedicate, recognize that our time together here has been a culmination of the efforts of so many that have provided us with the lives that we have, the teachings that have made their way through centuries, that have created these conditions to be here in this moment that comes only once. And our efforts here will have impacts that'll go far beyond our lifetimes. So let us take a moment to dedicate this collective merit, both our current merit of our participation and of the merit of all those who helped bring it to life for us, for the benefit of all sentient beings, that they may be free of suffering, and that we may use this merit in ways that help us cultivate our highest potentials, so we can be a benefit to all beings. And let's dedicate. By this merit, may I soon attain the enlightened state of Guru Buddha, that I may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their sufferings. May the precious Bodhi mind not yet born arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore.
Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare